She's like a sickness in my brain, a vision standing by the window pane. She ripples through the blinds and leaves me in a daze. It's in the way her body moves me, the way she grabs me and intoxicates, until the signals in my mind forget to operate. Pressure in your fragile skull. I take my pleasure from my alcohol. She'll never give you any time at all. She just comes and goes, you know. And she's got me living in a chemical love. And I try to find the strength to know when she comes back to me again. I'm gonna come up from my...
Hello everybody, welcome back, and it feels good to be back. It's my first video that I'm recording since I've gotten back from vacation. My voice, I don't know why, but I lost it a little bit while I was in Mexico and it's just coming back, so it kind of sounds a little gravelly, but you know, bear with me. This is coffee and crime time, and my mug today, the message for today is you've got this, because you know what? The past couple of days, I was feeling like I did not have this. And when I say this, I mean work, life, everything. I'm sure you guys feel this way too, sometimes, all the time maybe. And you almost feel like there's too much going on, so you don't want to do anything because you don't know where to start. And I have felt very overwhelmed. Taking a vacation is great, and getting away is great, and relaxing is great. But when you run your own business or you have a job like I do that I'm so passionate and about, I'm about this job, I'm about my channel, I'm about the cases we cover. I get really into them. And I had to kind of turn that off while I was on vacation. And it was very hard to turn it back on when I got back, especially considering that I had a little snafu in my life. I don't know if you guys remember, but I told you when I left, I had already had part 3 of the Manson video recorded and I just had to edit it, but I wasn't gonna be able to edit it before I left. So I would edit it when I got back and then post it. Well, I took with me my camera and my memory card because I wanted to get some pictures and video of my sister because I went there for her wedding. And while I was there, somehow the memory card got lost. So that memory card had all the pictures of my sister at her wedding that I took with my good camera and the Manson video footage. So that was kind of a double whammy for me, because not only did I lose hours of work that I put into the Manson video, but I lost all the pictures and video that I took of my sister in her wedding dress and getting ready and everything. So that kind of hurt in 2 different ways. But you know, you just have to kind of roll with these things when they happen. Thankfully, I had my cell phone, which I took some pictures and video with my sister on her wedding day, and I have my vlogging camera that I did take some footage with, so I did get some stuff, and hopefully it will suffice for what I lost when I lost the memory card. Maybe the memory card will pop up. Maybe it's just like in my suitcase or at the bottom of my camera bag and I just couldn't find it, even though I've searched high and low. Maybe it will pop up. Fingers crossed. But since I don't have time to wait for it to pop up, I have to re-record the Manson video. This is so Andrew Cunanan video, kind of reminiscent for me, because those files were corrupted and now these files are completely lost. But I have to look on the bright side and take a positive spin and say that while I was on vacation, I was looking more into the Manson family and doing more research and reading more stories, and I found out more stuff. So when I re-record part 3 tomorrow morning, which will be Saturday morning, which will be the day this posts, when I re-record it, it will be better and it'll be more fleshed out and it's just gonna be better. So, silver lining. And besides that, you know, even though I was gone for a week, my husband and I were gone for a week, our kids were still here. My mother-in-law came over and kind of stayed with them and the dogs while we were gone. So we had 2 kids and 3 dogs here still while we were gone. And even though we weren't here, I thought I was gonna come home to like a house as if we were on vacation and nothing was touched, but there was still people living here while we were gone, and I have a lot of laundry to do and a lot of cleaning to do, and my Easter stuff is still up. I don't know if you saw from the introduction to this video, but my Easter stuff is still up, so I just have a lot that's kind of pressing down on me. I haven't gotten to make my to-do list because we just got back pretty much Wednesday night, so I've only had really a day to kind of settle in and, you know, hang out with the kids. Anyways, I'm just ranting and venting. But let's talk about what's going on with true crime. This week, while I've been gone, lots of stuff has happened. And one of the most interesting of those things to me was the update in the Delphi murders investigation. Now, if you haven't seen my video on the Delphi murders, it was one of the first true crime videos that I ever did. It was a case that really, really hit me hard. It was two 8th grade girls, two young girls, and they were just out for a walk on a day they had off from school. The weather was nice. They went for a walk in Delphi, Indiana, where they lived, and there's this really cool bridge. It's like a very high bridge. It looks super dangerous to me. So it's the Monon High Bridge Trail, and this bridge, I'll put a picture in, but it's super, it looks precarious, but it also looks really beautiful. So they're just hiking on this bridge, taking pictures, Snapchatting, chatting like, you know, young girls who are friends do, and they were murdered senselessly. There's literally, you know, you can't imagine a reason that something like that would happen. So it was a really sad story. The case bothered me. That's why one of my first videos that I did was on this case, and I'm really happy to see that there's been new updates and new breaks in the case. So let's talk about the breaks in the case. And like I said, if you're not familiar with this story, I will post the link to that video so you can catch up if you want to do that before you watch the rest of this. But let's talk about the new information and the new evidence, I guess, that has been, you know, released in this case. And what we have found now is, even though this is new evidence to us, the Indiana State Police have had this for quite some time. So the bodies of these two girls were found on February 14th, 2017. And so it's just under 2 years ago. And because Delphi is such a small town, it's one of those places where everybody knows everybody, where you leave your doors unlocked. You know, you just grow up knowing everybody who lives in the town. I thought that it would be solved pretty quickly, but it's been almost 2 years now, and it hasn't been solved. No arrests have been made. When this first happened, they had a pretty good amount of evidence because Libby had her phone on her and she'd been taking pictures and video, and it was thought that she had captured the man who killed them in audio and video on her cell phone, but they never really released the full audio and video. They only released a little snippet just to get the voice of the person, and it's just basically a man saying, you know, get down the hill, or down the hill. You know, that's all you could hear was him saying down the hill, which we all assumed meant he was telling them to go off the bridge and down the hill, which is where their bodies were inevitably found. So with all the evidence they had, the guy allegedly being caught on film, his voice and his likeness, or a video of him at least walking, with that evidence, that plethora of evidence, plus it being a small town, everybody, especially in the true crime community, was kind of shocked when it didn't seem like they were getting any closer to making an arrest. And I guess this was one of the cases where a ton of armchair detectives, you know, they started descending on the police department and sending tips and, you know, sending ideas of who it could have been. There was a bunch of people who were falsely accused because there was a sketch released of the man who supposedly was the person who killed these girls. Now, this sketch has been what we have thought the perpetrator looked like for 2 years almost. We've thought this was the guy. And now they've released a completely different sketch this week. And they're saying the first sketch, that's not the guy. He has been ruled out as a person of interest. But this other sketch, this is the guy. This is the guy we think, so keep a lookout for him. Now we're all wondering, what the heck? How has it taken so long for you to get this sketch of the actual perpetrator when you've had all the same information, right? You've had his, you know, the video of him walking on the bridge. You have his voice. why is this sketch so different than the first sketch? The first sketch, it's of a guy who appears to be kind of heavier, in his late 40s, 50s, scruffy, kind of dumpy looking. You know, he's got like a big coat on and this little hat thing. And now this other sketch is of a guy who appears to be in his 20s, and he's more clean cut, much younger, not scruffy looking. So how did you mistake this first sketch? How could you be so wrong between the two sketches? Well, come to find out, they've had this second sketch, the one we're just seeing now, they've had that sketch since 3 days after the murder of Abby and Libby. So the police have had this sketch for quite a while. I'm wondering why it took so long to release it. I'm wondering if they didn't want the perpetrator to know that they knew who he was. If they kind of maybe wanted the perpetrator to think that they thought it was this other guy who didn't look anything like him, so he would maybe feel safer, lulled into a false sense of security, because they do think that it is somebody from the Delphi area. So this past Monday afternoon is when they held the press conference with the new information. The superintendent, Doug Carter, he released the new sketch. He also released new video and audio, so there's more audio now. And this audio actually includes the whole speech of the killer, I guess. And he's basically saying, guys, I need you to go down the hill. I'll see if I can play it for you in here. If I can't, I will link to where you can hear it yourself. And there's also a video of the guy actually walking on the bridge. And it's weird to me because when you see the video of the guy walking on the bridge, he looks more like the guy in the first sketch than he does of the guy in the second sketch. He looks older. He looks kind of bigger. He looks kind of like, even the way he walks, like his gait is that of an older man. So maybe this person is so, I guess, smart or good at committing crimes that he was able to anticipate that somebody may have seen him or gotten him on video, and he was able to hide who he really was by pretending to be older. But it just kills me because how would he have known that he was being caught on video or on camera? It's all very confusing. Doug Carter was very emotional, visibly emotional during this press conference. And it's no wonder. Like I said, this is the murder of 2 8th grade girls. This is the most senseless, the most confusing type of crime because they're innocent. They haven't done anything to anybody. They're just out trying to enjoy themselves on a day they have off from school. And somebody brutally ends their lives. And the way that they were murdered or the way that their bodies were found, anything that has happened to them before they were killed, that has not been released. And a lot of people are curious as to why it has not been released. And I suspect it is because they are minors and privacy reasons. Their families most likely don't want the conditions of their body and what happened to them in their last moments to be released. I would feel the same if it was my daughter. You don't need to know that stuff in order to solve the crime. The general public doesn't need to know that stuff. And although we in the true crime community, we want to know that stuff because we want to know everything, I think it's best, especially in this case, that we don't. There's people online who speculate. I started reading through some of it and then I couldn't finish that. And since it's speculation and we don't know if it's true or not, there's really no point in reading it. If it was the actual police report and it was actually what happened, I might have read it just because I feel like the more information I have, the more I can put it together in my head. That's the way my brain works. But anyways, Doug Carter was very emotional during this press conference. It's a very tough crime. Also, like I said, Delphi is a small town. And as these law enforcement officials spend a lot of time with these cases, they do spend a lot of time with the victims. They find out about their backgrounds. They go through their personal things. And I can imagine that you would end up feeling a connection to these girls as you were trying to crack the case of who murdered them. So he is emotional. It's an important case to the people of Delphi, to the people of Indiana. It's an important case to the law enforcement officials who have been really doing their best to solve it. But Doug Carter, he delivered a message to the killer, which I think is telling. And I'll tell you why after I read it. To the killer, who may be in this room, we believe you are hiding in plain sight. In more than 2 years, you never thought we would shift gears to a different investigative strategy, but we have. We know this is about power to you. You want to know what we know, and one day you will. So here's my theory. And I have been contacted by several people in the past, 4 or 5 months. People who, I'm not going to release their identities or really say much more than people who I think may be from the area or know people from the area. And what I get from the message that Doug Carter sent to the killer and the things that I've been told by these people is that the police kind of already know who it may be. And the people of Delphi also, I think, may know who it is or have an idea. At least some of them, possibly, because multiple people have reached out to me and given me information. And all of those people who have reached out, who I don't believe to be connected, have told me roughly the same stuff. And I'm not going to say what they told me just because I don't want to release information that's inaccurate. I always like to kind of wait and see. I would never be irresponsible with my sources in that way. I would never be irresponsible with the information they give me in that way, especially if it might hinder an active investigation. So I'm just going to leave it at that. I have a feeling, I have a hunch that the person who did this is known by law enforcement officials. And I think that's why they're releasing this information to the public now. And when he says, you want to know what we know, that also tells me that may be the reason they've withheld this sketch for so long, because they wanted to throw the guy off the scent. They wanted the guy to think that they were on a completely different path of investigation, that they were going down the wrong path so that he would feel safe and maybe confess to somebody, or maybe mess up, or maybe, slip up and do something again. And while they were watching him, they could catch him in the act. This is all speculation. Like I said, this is just my theory. I don't know this for sure, but let me know what you guys think. If you're of the same kind of opinion that the police have known and know now more than they're telling us, then maybe they know the possible identity of this person, but they just don't have enough on him to arrest him, so they're trying to draw him out. Doug Carter also said that the person in the sketch could now look different. He could have grown his hair a little bit longer. He could have facial hair. It's been a couple of years, so even though he looks pretty clean cut in the picture, he could look different now. And I almost wonder again, and like I said, this is just speculation, if the person that they may be aware of has grown some facial hair or has grown his hair out longer, and they're trying to signal to people that that's what they should be looking for. When a case like this happens, law enforcement wants to make sure that if they make an arrest and they have to put this person on trial, this is an open and shut case. There's nothing that can go wrong in a trial. There's nothing that the killer and his lawyers can come forward and say, oh, this evidence wasn't collected properly, or you didn't have the warrant for this and you searched this anyways. You know what I mean? They want an open and shut case. So they may know the identity of this person, but they don't have enough evidence to place him under arrest yet, or they don't have enough evidence that they think they could win in a trial. So that's just my thoughts. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. It's very, very sad. And there was a long time that I thought this case was not going to be solved, because I thought it was somebody who was just rolling through town, that he was there and then he was gone after, and we were never going to find him because he just kind of disappeared. But now I feel like we may see a resolution to this, and we may find out what happened to Abby and Libby. And hopefully the person is brought to justice, because they really deserve that, and their families really deserve that. I'm going to switch gears. We're going to go into another story, another incredibly sad story. And this happens in Illinois, Chicago. A 5-year-old boy who went missing about a week ago. They believe they found the remains of his body. His name was AJ Freund. He was 5, like I said, and the remains were wrapped in plastic and placed in a shallow grave in a remote area of Woodstock, Illinois, which was about 7 miles from where he lived. Now, initially, when AJ had gone missing, it was his father who made the 911 call and said that the last time he'd seen his son was when he went to bed the night before. Now, obviously, his parents aren't that smart because they found a bunch of, I mean, it didn't take long for the police, who it's their job to figure out if they're lying. They found a bunch of forensic evidence on their cell phones that let the police know they were lying about when they last saw him and what happened. And in the end, the police believe that AJ's parents forced him to remain in a cold shower for an extended period of time. They abused him. An official cause of death has not been released, but obviously the police believe, because the parents were arrested, that the parents killed their 5-year-old son, and then his father buried him in a shallow grave. Now, obviously, you guys know that I have a real issue with any crimes that involve children. I think most of us do. What's even worse is that AJ's mother is, I think, 7 months pregnant. So thankfully, this child will be taken away from her, because I hope she goes to prison for a very long time and given to a family who will love it and take care of it. I can't imagine anything that a 5-year-old child could do to deserve the treatment that AJ got. And on top of that, to just be kind of discarded like trash and left in a shallow grave by the parents who killed him. I obviously don't know all of the information. They haven't, released much. They haven't gone on trial, but I will be keeping a close eye on this case. It's a case that I really want to get more information on and get an idea of what their motive was, what the hell they were thinking, why you would harm your own child, and hopefully, they got the right people, and they will go to trial and be put away for a long time. It's very sad to me that when a child is harmed, it's usually their family or somebody close to them. It's very sad to me. When a kid goes missing like this, your immediate thought is to look into the parents. A child's parents should be the last people that they have to be worried about harming them. Your job as a parent is to protect, to preserve, to let your child enjoy their childhood and be young and happy and free for as long as possible until they have to grow up and deal with adult things. That's your job as a parent. And unfortunately, some people have children who should never have children. And there's no system in place to keep this in check. You have your social services system, obviously, but we all know that social workers are overworked and underpaid. They have way too many kids and families to keep an eye on. And they don't have enough power when they even suspect something to go in and remove a child. They have to jump through all these hoops. So there was another case like this recently, 2-year-old Zayden Jovanovic, who was killed by his parents or his mother. And DCF said they had investigated 2 previous allegations in relation to the boy's mother, Brandy Marchant. They had a claim on November 5th of 2017, an allegation of emotional abuse, and Brandy was apparently making homicidal and suicidal statements in the presence of her children. The report states that DCF did multiple interviews with the people that were involved in this incident over the phone and in person. And one child did say that there was a homicidal statement mentioned about Zayden from his mother. DCF said that the allegation was unsubstantiated and the case was closed. The following year, on November 21st, so literally a year later, the same month, 2018, DCF was called in to investigate after Brandy and an infant tested positive for marijuana at birth. So Brandy continues to have children. The report states social workers responded 7 days later, on November 28th, and determined that because medical officials did not indicate that the child's health was negatively impacted by marijuana usage, the case was closed and reassigned from an infant alleged victim of abuse or neglect to family in need of assessment, infant positive for substances. That case was closed on January 14th of 2019. Now, on April 11th, 2019, at the beginning of this month, police found Zayden covered in a blanket in a crib in a South Wichita home. They soon determined he was dead. His 4-month-old brother was found in poor medical health and was taken to the hospital for treatment. Now, Zayden's parents, Patrick and Brandy, they were arrested and charged with first-degree murder, child abuse, and child endangerment. So we have all of these cases that are popping up where parents are abusing and neglecting and murdering their own children. And often DCF is involved in these cases. They've had some kind of reports before. They've had some kind of interactions with the families before, but nothing happens. And I think that that's a sign of a system that needs to be fixed, that's missing something, or something's wrong with it, and we need to do something as a community and a society to fix the system that's in place to protect our children, and does its best, I think, but isn't doing all that it can. So I don't know what the answer is. I want to look more into this. I want to kind of investigate into the social services system and DCF and all of that. I want to kind of look into that. If you guys have any more information on these systems and any ideas of what you think could be changed, put them in the comments, or go ahead and email me, because I definitely want to start looking into this. And I don't know what we can do, but we have to be able to do something. We have to be able to do something for these kids, because we can do our best to be the best parents we can be, but there's so many children out there every single day that are being neglected and abused and hurt, and the system that's in place to protect them isn't doing it. So I'm going to end this here. I'm sorry this was a little bit of a depressing coffee and crime time. I'm going to do one tomorrow for you guys, and it's going to cover some more light topics, because I really missed you guys and I want to chat and I want to spend time with you and just be, our normal, happy and fun selves. But these things needed to be talked about, and hopefully in this community, us together here, we can, put our brains together. We can do our best in our own communities, in our own towns, to do our part to make sure that if we see something like a child that may not be taken care of properly, a child that may be being abused, we say something. Call, child services. It's okay. If the child's not being abused, if nothing's wrong, they're going to check it out, and they're going to find out that nothing's wrong, and they're going to go on their way. If something is going on, that will help it come to the light. It's always best to be on the safe side, especially when it comes to children. Always err on the side of caution. So I really want to urge you guys that if you see something that's happening with a neighbor, with a friend, with a family member, call it in. It's okay. If nothing's going on, nothing's going to happen to those parents. I know there's going to be people in the comments who are like, don't do that. People are going to be calling child services on everybody. That's not right. It's an invasion of people's privacy. What if nothing's happening? Hey, if nothing's happening, then they'll find out nothing's happening. This is just something I feel strongly about, so I'm sorry if you guys disagree. If you see something, say something. Do your part in your community, in your town, in your little corner of the world to help these kids that don't have help. All right, guys, thank you so much for being here. Manson video will be out this weekend. I hope. I'll record it tomorrow, hopefully edit it, hopefully get it up by Sunday or Monday. I love you guys so much. I'm looking forward to sharing parts 3 and 4 of the Manson video with you. Love you guys. Have a good day. Stay kind and stay beautiful. Bye. Barely drank any of my coffee. We were so intense. I didn't drink any of my coffee. And I got 2 coffees. We were talking so much, so into it. I have so much coffee left.
I take my pleasure from